Hey, what's up, Troy? How you doing, man?
Daniel Burke, what's up, dude? I'm good.
I can't believe it's been a whole decade since we last spoke. It's felt like a decade at least. What has it
It
been?
has.
4 years, 4 days? I don't know. Time is a construct, but welcome back to TDIT, Two Dads in Tech. We are right off the tongue roll, TDIT. Find us at twodadsintech.com, and we're back. We've taken a little bit of a break here, and here we start with kind of a new strategy this year. And so if you've been listening with us from the beginning, hopefully you like the new direction that we're headed. It's not going to be so different that you have to change what you think and feel about Two Dads in Tech, but we're going to lean into guests quite a bit more. And while we've always been Two Dads in Tech, and we're still going to be Two Dads in Tech, we're going to kind of run with TDIT. So if you think of the podcast, you think TDIT. And the reason being is we're going to lean a little bit more into the people. Probably going to be people who work in tech, although not primarily. There will be others, but more about who they are as people beyond the tech, beyond the screen, beyond the work. And I think that's just an exciting direction for us. We found that that's what is most exciting for us last year, and that's what we're going to lean into this year. Troy, what do you think?
Yeah. And to add on to that, we kind of analyzed all the messages that we got from people saying that they enjoyed the podcast. And honestly, not one message was about, oh, I love that you told me about the software. It was always about how somebody resonated or how some specific scenario was relevant to them in their life. And it was always, I spent too much time on my screen, or I love this moment with my son, or me and my wife are trying to figure this out. That's what we want to focus on. And that's the impact that we want to bring moving forward. So I love this. I love this switch. I think it's going to be so cool. And I think 2026 is going to be huge for us.
Us too. Tell us what you think. Email me, Daniel at twodadsintech.com. Hit us up on our website, twodadsintech.com, and enjoy episode 1 with the new strategy with an upcoming guest. Take it away.
Welcome back to another episode of TDIT. And today we are joined by Brendan Hufford, founder of Growth Sprints, where he helps B2B SaaS teams build content strategies that actually drive revenue. But outside of that, and more importantly, he's married. He's raising 4 boys just outside of Chicago, balancing work and running his own company, fatherhood, and whatever emotional roller coaster Chicago sports teams are putting in front of him that week. Brendan Hufford, how are you?
Brendan.
I got doubled up on this last week because I had the Bears and the Hoosiers to deal with. It was a lot.
But
what a time in the Midwest.
Good and bad.
Hey, you know what? The Packers win was our Super Bowl, so I'll take it. I'm just fine. Like, they lost that game, but they still. I'll tell you this. It's been so nice just to have a quarterback that's like I think it's media training, and I think Caleb Williams is really smart. Anytime he does any interview, he always thanks the city. He talks about the city and the people, and he's relentless with it. And I'm like, I can tell you're doing it on purpose now, but thank you. Like, that's all we want in Chicago. We just want our guy, and he feels like our guy.
You know, I hated Caleb Williams the first 2 years, and I think a lot of people did because he walked around like he had already won a Super Bowl, and he had that mindset of like, I am the best, and he didn't have the numbers to prove it. This year, I'm like, and I'm a Cowboys fan, but I'm kind of like married into the Packers fan as well. So this year, I'm like, you know what? Like, you're actually kind of a good guy. You're smarter than what you came off as the first 2 years, and you're a good quarterback. And what's really sad is what might be the best throw in NFL history will never go unnoticed because he threw the interception to lose the game. And that's sad, but that's all right. Caleb Williams, much love to him. If you're listening, he should, because it's us. But
he's our biggest fan, Caleb Williams.
Not in tech, not a dad, but
he never stops DMing me on LinkedIn. Like, come on, Caleb, what's your deal, man?
Relax.
I feel
go
like
win games.
Go get something more important to do with your life.
Goodness. Well, hey, Brendan, thank you so much for joining. Let's start off with like an open-ended question here. You have 4 boys. Daniel and I both have 2 boys. You're a husband. You're running a company. Tell us, how in the world did you get here?
Oh man. Okay. So I was very fortunate. I think like the first answer is I got super lucky when I was 20 years old that I saw a really cute girl that I was working at summer camp with, and we dated in college, and she convinced me to move up to Chicago, and then we ended up getting married, and that's my wife, right? Like I look at her all the time.
I gotta pause you there and just say that's a great way to tell your story. Is you got lucky. We're all lucky. We don't deserve it. Anyways, continue. Carry on.
Daniel, it's outrageous that like I literally said this to her this morning. I was like, it's so crazy to me. You made a bet on this weird like pop punk boy with his spiky belts, and his like dyed black hair and a faux hawk. And like now we have this, which
It's
things
crazy.
are going, all things considered, it's going great.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah.
like, that's wild that she made that bet. She was like, yeah, like I was just down for whatever. Like, it's great that we're doing this. But like, she
Yeah.
was also down for me being a teacher which is what I went to school for, because we let 18-year-olds decide what they want to do with their lives, right?
Of course.
And making $50,000 a year. I had my admin license. I tried climbing that ladder. I thought it was going to be what I did for the rest of my life, just be a teacher or a principal. And then I had an extra 25 pounds around my midsection, Sunday night panic attacks. The Sunday scaries were very real. I like hyperventilated on my way to work one time on a Monday. A not great relationship with alcohol. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. And I just kept going. I read a thing, I think it's Albert Einstein. I don't know if either of you have ever heard this story, but he worked in, I believe, a patent office because he could get his work done in like an hour or two a day. And then he would just shut the door and work on his own stuff the rest of the day.
idea.
And I'm like, that kind of sounds like a lot of us.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
But he figured out how to do it in office, which is some real gangster shit. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to do that. So I was a principal and I was like really overworked I was literally the lowest paid assistant principal in the state of Indiana, because you can look that stuff up.
Wow.
And it's so sad saying that now. And I just took a step back. I was like, I need escape velocity. So I went back in the classroom for a couple of years, built a little side business, sold some e-commerce businesses that I had, and then just started working pretty much in tech. I worked at a web design agency. I worked in another B2B SaaS agency. I went in-house at a company called Active Campaign, and all of that. I mean, even that, like I did it again when I was a director at the second agency leading a big team. I was like, I need escape velocity. I got to get out. I can't do this working 60 hours a week. You know, I was doing whatever it was, 996 before it was cool.
Yep.
And then when I went in-house at Active Campaign, I had enough escape velocity to just put in my 2 weeks eventually. And I just was already running my own thing. It overlapped enough that I just had less meetings the next Monday. And that was a couple of years ago. Wow.
So wait, real quick, back up. You moved to Chicago where were you before that?
So I grew up in upstate New York, and I lived there until middle school, at which point my mom moved to the other side of Indiana, closer to Ohio, to a city called Fort Wayne.
I'm familiar.
And I lived there all throughout high school. I went back to New York for college, to Ithaca College, came back to Fort Wayne. There was no teaching jobs there. So there's like one giant school district, and they were like, we have one social studies position open. And I definitely was not getting that role at 22 with my mismatched like suit jacket and pants showing up, like the too short tie. It was bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, my wife she literally, I was on the phone with her. She was like, you know, my girlfriend at the time. And she was like, just move up here. There's a million schools. And I was like, no way. And I can tell you, living here now, there are literally a million schools.
My wife was a teacher in the Chicago, south suburbs in Orland Park and in, Homewood, Illinois and stuff.
Heck
We
yeah.
lived there for about 5 or 6 years. She grew up in Orland Park as well. So it was one of those stories where she was teaching with people who were her teachers 25, 30 years prior, which I don't know if you have those types of relationships, but I've heard from my wife, it's weird when you go and your coworker is the person who bossed you around, decades prior.
We live in my wife's hometown, where she went to elementary school through high school, and I love it here, but she's attested that the townies situation is very bizarre.
Yeah. That is, you moved around a lot. You mentioned a guy, Albert Einstein, never heard of, no, just kidding. I think the teachers to sales, or not even sales tech, kind of train is one that I believe firmly in. I'm not a teacher. I've never been a teacher. In fact, I had a very difficult time in school. And so the idea of even becoming a teacher just never even occurred to me. My wife, though, had a kind of your star student experience her whole life, and then went to college and got her degree to be a teacher, and then taught, just kind of never left. And the thing I've seen her do really well, and some of the really stellar sellers that I've met and come across, is that acumen to do teaching well requires a lot of the same skills and talents that it just takes to build and be an entrepreneur and to do really tech sales, but tech in general. Did you find something similar with your transition that you're like, oh, like everything I do here is sort of what I learned how to do there, just packaged differently?
It overlapped so well. I mean, it's hard to tell, right? Because I started an e-commerce brand. I started to review and affiliate websites. I learned a lot of like SEO stuff and email marketing. I kind of just picked up all these skills trying to build my own stuff. Because I didn't come up in the like an adult world of like digital marketing or tech or anything like that. I came up in the world of what I would call like online marketing, which is a lot of the people selling courses about success, and then they'll sell you a course about how to make a course and podcasts about how to podcast. Like that's if you're familiar with Ty Lopez, like it was like that world.
My goodness.
I had a conversation
Super,
with
like,
Ty
yeah.
Lopez. Fun conversation. I'll tell you about it later. But
I'm here in my garage, that classic video.
I showed that to my kid the other day because my kid said something about knowledge, and I'm like, let me show you the funniest clip ever.
So
Just
funny.
Ty
This is
Lopez saying
knowledge.
knowledge for 15 minutes straight. But I came up in that world, and that world convinces you to like hate your life. They're like, you hate your life, we're gonna make your life great.
Yeah.
And it was like, when I kind of uncovered like I don't actually have to hate this, that was kind of a big unlock for me. And the move from teaching, like I was already really, really good at teaching. I also, because I taught in Gary, Indiana, and on the south side of Chicago, like I was really used to in high school, you have to be the show or these kids are going to eat your lunch. Like if you show up unprepared or they smell blood in the water or sense any weakness, you have immediately lost them. So I had to be like ready to go, just like 2 snaps and go all the time. And then all of a sudden I hop on calls to sell clients, or I'm meeting with people or doing a presentation or whatever. And it translates like 1 to 1. I don't know if I am this way naturally, but I definitely learned how to be this way over 10 years. You know, you get in whatever it is, the certain number of reps or hours rules or something around mastery. I definitely got that, just not directly, right? I don't even know if I would have gone directly into this career if I would be as good as I am now. What teaching made me, you know? And I think especially working in marketing and especially marketing in tech, there's such an education component that understanding how people learn and all this. Here, hold on, wait. Oh, where is it? Hold on, I'm going to show you something really cool. So
If you're not
this
watching
is
and
my
you're just
school.
listening, move
Was
over
too
to
cheap
YouTube.
Huh?
Go ahead. I was telling the listeners, if you're only on Spotify, you don't get to see what we're watching on YouTube. Go ahead, Brendan.
Yes, for sure. Watch the video. My schools didn't have the money to, I was going to call them cheap. They definitely didn't have the money to buy all the teachers editions because that's kind of the racket. They're like, you can buy the books, but the teachers edition is $400. It's insane. So they literally gave me the book. This is my like psychology book. I taught psychology. The cover that I made for it is ripped off, but you can see all these little things in here. I put my name on it so nobody would take it. But like I have all these notes about teaching psychology to these kids. So teaching psychology, like it's so meta, but I developed this mastery of understanding human psychology and then also how to communicate things to other people and explaining the world to people and how that captures like everything translates 1 to 1. And that's what's so wild to me.
Yeah.
Whether it's marketing or sales or like whatever, teacher skills. Daniel, I just would feel bad. I had this idea of like, I should help more teachers do what I did. And I was like, I kind of feel bad pulling all the best teachers out of teaching though. Like, hey, you're really good at this. Come make more money.
It's so
but
tough.
It's
so tough. I mean,
who's gonna teach
I've had this.
I don't know.
I've had this conversation with my wife dozens of times, and she's now a co-founder of a media company. She and I started together here locally. And I mean, it's discouraging when you think about the money that came in from a grueling week. I mean, you know, the hours of a teacher are very similar to an entrepreneur. It just never stops. You go home and you grade and you plan and you go to school and you get, tormented by kids all day. And then you do it again every single day. The weekends, your mind is just bombarded with what Monday morning looks like. And it's discouraging. So here's a question I have for you as a former teacher now on, let's call it the other side, as poor as that connotation might come off. Would you have stuck around if it wasn't for the money?
Oh God. So the original answer that I wanted to give you is I make a lot more money right now.
Right.
Like a lot more. And it would have been, I can't imagine them paying a teacher what I make right now. Now, granted, I have friends that live in Chicago suburbs that are making 6 figures teaching high school freaking poetry. And I'm not demeaning that. But where I was teaching, I was working my ass off making $45K a year, and they're making $145K a year because they've manipulated all the like lane changes and salary table whatevers.
Yeah.
Anyways, would I have saved? No, I would have taken, I'm very fortunate that I make more money now, but I also like the freedom to be able to do this is a really hard thing for me to argue against. You know, like even when we were scheduling this and it was like, oh, we got the time switched up. Can you move it up an hour? Yeah, I can do whatever I want. This is all, everything's made up.
Yeah. There's
That's
freedom.
a hard thing to exchange. Or, you know, I was just looking at my calendar in 2 weeks, my wife's like, hey, I'm working the book fair. Can you pick, my youngest up from school? His school is right there. That's why I rent this office that I'm in right now. It's because the school is across the street. And it's like, yeah, no problem. I'll just cancel my meetings for the second half of the day. It's all made up.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to like. Money is
especially the teacher.
That freedom.
And especially the teacher. Like, I mean, I remember
I had to ask permission to go to the bathroom for 10 years. Like
seriously,
when I mean, it was wild. When I went to my first that web design agency, my first day I was sharing a desk. They didn't have a desk for me yet. So I was sharing a desk with my boss, which is really uncomfortable.
That's weird.
We were literally like face to face at his desk. So weird. And I was like, all right, hey man, I'll be right back. I'm going to go to the bathroom. And he's like, yeah, cool. Go to the bathroom, come back. You know, later in the day, I'm just like, oh, I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick. And he just looks at me. He's like, Brendan, you do not need to tell me. If you tell me again that you're going to the bathroom, we're going to have a problem. You don't need to tell me any of that stuff. And something in my brain went, oh my God, I was treated like a child for 10 years. Like I couldn't even go to the bathroom when I wanted to.
That's nuts.
The bar is literally on the floor for free.
Yeah, literally.
So I'll take it.
Goodness. Well, so you have 4 boys. I think you said 5, 7, 10, and 12 when you filled out that doc. I know that's got to be an active household. What does the morning look like for you?
I'm very lucky. My 12-year-old is really cool, and he's getting this like sense of independence where he sets his own alarm right now. He gets up and goes for runs on his own.
Wow.
I don't know what I'm doing right, but things are going great right now.
Awesome.
And so he gets up and he does that. Sometimes, like I've been under the weather for the last week or so. All the kids went back to school. There's 3 separate schools. So they bring 3 schools worth of germs home. Invariably, somebody gets sick. It was me for the last little bit. And like I was asleep and he'll like wake me up, which feels irresponsible. Like my son, which is not always true, but he's so responsible now. He's like, hey, you got to take me to school in 15 minutes. We got to leave at 6:45. Hey, I'm getting up and going for a run. So the mornings can be really chaotic sometimes, depending on who is the deepest into their quirks, let's call them. You know, one of my kids is super disorganized. One of them is like more prone to be whiny. One of the, like, they all have their things, right? Every kid's different. Depending on who is deep into their quirk on that day kind of decides the morning. But I honestly, like, we tend to have pretty chill mornings. Like I don't have to rush out. I try not to schedule calls or anything before I take them to school. Like we just kind of get up and hang out, and then I take my oldest to school and I go to work. And sometimes I don't right away and I take the other boys to school. It's kind of fluid and easy and a little bit less chaotic than you might think.
Yeah.
After school is where the chaos happens.
Dive into that.
Well, they all just come home and they've all had completely different days, and they're all at such different ages that it only takes one of them to like set off somebody else or to start a conflict or to get into it with my wife or whatever. And I'm not home during that time. Like I usually come home. We've done it for a while where I went to work earlier and then I came home in time for them all to come home around 3:30. Right now we're doing the thing where I take my oldest to school and I start my work at 8 and I work till like 4:45 or 5 o'clock. I get home around 5. She fields a lot of that, but that's where a lot of the chaos happens. Cause we're just not, I have this dream of being like a very, I watch all these TikToks of these, like, I'm a super regimented military fitness dad. And here's our family routine. Kids come home and they do homework and then they put their affirmations up on the board and they do all this stuff. And that's awesome. Whatever makes your family work and be happy. We're just a little looser than that.
Yeah.
So that loosey goose like is really nice and chill sometimes, but sometimes it's a little, it just gets, it descends into chaos.
I haven't known you long. I mean, 30 minutes now. And I feel like I'm already gathering the, like, let it kind of brush off the shoulder type of approach in a good way. I guess I'm wondering, as someone who's a successful entrepreneur with 4 kids, I mean, that's more than I would say most people, although I don't know the median. I think 1, 2 kids is probably more common than 4. What do you think most people get wrong? And specifically builders, entrepreneurs, people who own some process, who are also parents, what do you think they're getting wrong?
So I think all three of us would agree that we put a lot of work into our craft, right?
Yeah.
And for some reason, I think some people feel, for whatever, there's a myriad of reasons this happens. They just don't see the other things in their life as work. And when people, like, I've spoke about my marriage for a long time very intentionally, that my marriage was the most rewarding and important work that I did. And that frame of like, this is work. And when I see it as that, I can take joy in that work, but I have to work at this for it to be good. I think the same thing with the kids. Like, my wife and I are just constantly like talking about them. Something we got, again, really lucky with, that like we both over communicate. We talk all the time about everything. And we joke with each other of like, are we doing okay? Are we going to be okay? Is this okay? And it's like the fact that we're even asking that puts us in the top 1%.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's a lot of that, of just constantly trying to acknowledge things, notice things, do better. We have high accountability, I think, in our house, and it's really nice because things get better fast when they're hard. I told somebody the other day that like parenting is repair. You're going to screw up. So a lot of your work as a parent is just to repair those relationships with your kids and your partner as well. But we spend an inordinate amount of time talking about those things and trying to do that. And it's a total pain in the ass, because when you hold your kids accountable, your kids hold you accountable. And when they're 12 and 10, like, that sucks because they notice some that you're not noticing. And you're like, oh, you got me. Like, yeah, man, that's a great point. Like, I also think it's that I spent so many hours with teenagers for so long.
Yeah.
And I just had to humble myself and be like, I remember I would tell my high schoolers, like, you're smarter than me, not to be a nerd about this, but I was thinking of like Dungeons and Dragons, like stat lines, right? Like, you have equal intelligence to me. You're just as intelligent. You can notice, you're perceptive, all these things. I just have more wisdom than you. I just have more lived experience. And in some cases that allows me to do better in certain situations. But in a lot of situations, like, you're just as smart as me. You're just as capable. And they're not. Like, whatever, your front part of your brain doesn't develop until you're like 20 or something. But they're really brilliant. So it does make it a pain with the kids sometimes that they hold us accountable too, which I think is a good thing long term.
My 3.5-year-old holds me accountable because he does really bad at biting his nails. So does his dad. So does his mom. And so I say, hey, get your hands out of your mouth. Get your hands out of your mouth. And then he will say, Dad, get your hands out of your mouth. And I'm like, oh, I can't tell you to do that. And then just turn around and go do it myself. And to your point of work, I think that's so true. I feel like many people forget that a marriage is work and parenting is work. They almost fall into this place of it's just a repetitive process. You get off of work and then you go home. It's like, hey, hon, cool, let's cook dinner. Okay, great, kids, good, awesome. Like, they're not working on it. They're just like, I have to do this because I'm in it and I've committed to this, and things like that. I do feel like people forget you have to continue to work on it, and that's where things, in my opinion, things slide. I would guess, I don't know the statistic. I'm sure we could chat GPT it, but probably 60, 70, 80% of couples just don't actually work on their marriage, and they're just complacent. They're content with where it's at. I agree with
something
that.
we've talked a lot about on the podcast, where, Troy and I both believe heavily in communication and valuing our wives. And Brendan, it sounds, without a doubt that's exactly how you would feel with your relationship. I just don't think it works. We obviously, there's so many couples we know that it does work, but what is that? How do we define like a healthy marriage? I mean, people make unhealthy marriages work all the time, but to have a healthy, happy, like life-giving marriage with a spouse, I think it requires being on the same page, and you can't be on the same page unless you're communicating about what page you're on. And as much as I think two people could mesh, even you've mentioned luck a few times, like sometimes people are just align more easily than others, even in marriages. But eventually you got to start talking about stuff. Switching gears, do you watch Abbott Elementary?
No, but
okay.
No, I need to.
It's a great show, and there's an episode. If you don't watch any other episode, you won't get a lot of the character development. So actually, you should start from the beginning. Love the show, but it's a show in Philly about a school called Abbott Elementary, and the main characters are very like Office, Parks and Rec-esque, where you're following the teachers. Anyways, there's this episode called No Phones, and the district puts on this like contest. All the schools in the district have to put their phones, students and faculty, in a box. And if they can last the whole day without opening that box, they'll get a pizza party. I won't tell you how the story ends because it's a really, really funny, really good episode. But there's this scene where you can tell the teachers and the grownups are just like addicts looking for a fix. I mean, they're like, oh God, I heard this news thing popped off and I'm not telling all my followers on Twitter about it. And like, my plumber's supposed to tell me what it costs to fix the blah, blah, blah. And they're just like freaking out. Rinse due. I need to pay it with the app on my phone, but it's on my phone. Meanwhile, all the kids are having the time of their lives. Like no technology, no screen. They're playing with Legos. They're doing charades. They're reading books. And there's this moment where one of the teachers looks around and they're like, they're all obsessed with their phones when we're on our phones. Like they're copying us, they're mimicking us. But when none of us have phones and you level the playing field, they're all actually relieved. Whereas we, the adults in the story, are more or less like the opposite because they're just addicted to this fix. And you mentioned the kids just look at us doing things and they start to mirror it. And I'm seeing, the way that my kids start to talk. Oh wow, that's a word he learned from me, or that's a tone or even expression he learned from me. I want my kids to learn the good things from me, but not the bad things. And unfortunately, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
All to say, great show, great episode. You should watch. But I think the takeaways is we are being watched, and the kids in our lives and even the people. I mean, when you run a business, the customers, I work at Beehive as an employee, but then I operate two different businesses, and I'm seeing every day more and more now as we mature as a company at Beehive, but like my customers and my could-be customers are watching me for better or worse. I'm a little chaotic on LinkedIn, and it's funny because I was on a call yesterday with a potential customer and I said, hey, I requested you on LinkedIn, just FYI. I was like, apologies in advance. I get a little crazy. And I say it almost as like an icebreaker. Like, I'm an idiot on LinkedIn and I use that to my advantage, but it might not be for everyone, but it doesn't change that people are watching. And I think it applies online and applies in real life. Going on a tangent here, but a lot of thoughts. I think you're unpacking some really good stuff.
No, we love tangents. And something you talked about is work. You worked on your marriage. You work on being a parent. Also, your work right now, you're making way more than you were as a teacher. Where do you feel like you're trying your best, but it still feels like you're falling short?
So I hold these two thoughts to be true at all times, that I am both better than everybody else at this. Like, I just do think that 100%. I also think that I'm a lazy piece of undeserving of love and success. Like, those things are both in my brain, 100% true at all times. And oscillating between them is a challenge. I put a lot of pressure on myself, and it's very, very hard for me to see the label from inside the jar at everything. Like, I enjoyed Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA for a really, really long time. Always felt like I was behind, always felt like I had to compete and assert myself and all this stuff. I stopped doing that just because of injuries and timing and stuff. All the training was when I was putting my kids to bed, and I'm not going to miss putting my kids to bed. But for the same reason I enjoy Jiu-Jitsu, which is really hard training with other people, I also enjoy CrossFit because it's just training really, really hard with other people. I don't care what the activity is. And doing CrossFit, I'll have people make comments about how much I lift or how strong I am or that I'm a bigger human. And I don't see any of that. Like, I carry a lot of, you're behind, you're going slow, like you could do better. Somebody jokingly asked me the other day, so I just hit, I have a group chat with a bunch of friends, and I've been joking about hitting 50,000 followers on LinkedIn because it's just like a fun, silly thing.
I saw that. Hey, I saw it. Congrats,
fun
dude.
fact, if you update your profile with your current follower count, you update that bio link. Every time you do that, LinkedIn resets who they send your stuff to. So if you're doing it every day, none of your stuff's going to get reach. Terrible idea. Don't do it. I have like 6 posts in a row where they got like 1,000 impressions. And I was like, I probably shouldn't change my bio header every day to this.
That platform
had the opposite effect, right? It was so funny. Anyways, I hit 50K and one of my friends was like, I will accept no less than 50 lessons you learned, blah, 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 blah. And Daniel, you get such a kick out of that. I said, lesson number 1 is no matter how good you think you're doing, you will immediately log into LinkedIn and LinkedIn will show you that somebody is doing better. And I sent them your post you just made
No, you
of
didn't.
like, here's my 13 million impressions and I doubled
That's funny.
followers last year. I'll probably double again this year. And I'm just like, shit, do better, Hufford. Do better. You're behind. Again.
I wrote that post for you. I was actually going to tell you the same thing, is I think you should do better.
It's so funny how this works out, right? But it's like, I put all this pressure on myself. So if you're asking me the question in earnest, like, where am I behind? It feels like everywhere. Like I have all of these goals for this year and I have all of these things I want to do. I have one of those, I don't know if either of you ever seen this, like these Jesse Itzler, like big calendar that's got like every month is a row and it's 365 days all in a calendar and you can mark out things. And what I mark on mine is like days that I work out. Yeah. And I'm just trying to, there's like a Jerry Seinfeld thing of like not missing too many days in a row. Like you just try to like keep the streak going as long as you can. Yep. And I can see in a glance, like my 2025 of all the days I missed, the periods where I missed a lot and like whatever, like I don't know, like I'm always feeling behind in my fitness, my family, my faith, like all of these different things. I'm not having enough fun. I'm not enjoying myself enough. I don't have enough hobbies. Like I've run on like toxic fuel for a very, very long time. Only through therapy and a lot of introspection and stuff over the last couple of years have I started to feel like I'm using that a little bit less. It's a very effective fuel, but it definitely like rots the engine a little bit.
Yeah. You mentioned along the same lines, a car ride to work back when you were a teacher where you kind of had a panic attack. And in that same sentence, you mentioned at one point having an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. I was hoping you could walk us through how you resolved or if you did resolve that. And it's not, you just mentioned therapy. I'm curious how that, if it played into it, but walk us through kind of the journey of who you were. And now it sounds like you're, for all intents and purposes, very healthy now. So kind of give us a little look into the journey.
Okay, cool. So I was teaching at a really not challenging school. The kids were great. I loved the communities that I taught in Gary and on the south side of Chicago, like amazing communities, amazing families and people. It was really the other adults that were really challenging for me. And being caught up in some really like toxic environments in these schools, making next to no money, working a lot. I used to, in Gary, there's a really nice area called Miller where there's actually a beach on Lake Michigan. And I used to drive up to Miller and just like sit in my car and look at the water and like make videos to myself about like, we're going to get through this. We're going to get out of this. In a year, you're going to look back on this. Like all this, I was like deep into Gary V before he was the Gary V we know now. When I was like still trying to find like him speaking at real estate events and stuff on YouTube, that he wasn't a social media guy in that way. He was still doing Wine Library. And I was like, you know, I remember hearing him say like, make these for yourself. You're going to appreciate this stuff later. And I was like trying to do all of that. I knew I had an unhealthy relationship with alcohol when I was hiding how much I was drinking. I never went off the rails. Maybe like once a year, I would pull like a Bert Kreischer and like take my shirt off at a party or something stupid. And everybody, I was
nothing
rewarded.
wrong with that.
But that's the thing. Is like I was rewarded for it.
Thursday night.
People are like, dude, you're a good hang. Like this is so much fun. You're a trip. And nothing bad. The thing is, nothing bad would ever happen. But then I would be like, it's not right that it's getting out of control like this. And my brain is very wired for, if one is better, all is best. No matter what I'm doing. Like I don't listen to podcasts, I'll start a podcast. I'm not a member of Slack communities. I'm going to start my own community. Like this whole trajectory I've been on in life has just been part of my brain being like, just this dumb stupidity of like, I think I can do this too. And so far it's going okay. But a lot of that, it's also the same with like fitness. It's also the same with alcohol. It's the same with all of these things where it's just like, my brain is like, oh, you want to have one beer? How about 12? And it's just, there's not a lot of in between. There's not a lot of moderate. Like I don't enjoy having like a taste of something.
Yeah.
I can agree with that one. Yeah.
I could agree with that one too.
But like, that is when I knew. So I just kind of just stopped drinking completely. I started drinking again a little bit when I was at the web design agency. We would do like beer runs on Fridays. You know, my wife and I talked about it. I'm like, can I just like have a beer with these guys? And she was like, sure. And then eventually she was like, I don't know, this kind of feels weird, like you're drinking again. I was like, all right, cool, I won't. And I just don't now.
Nice.
It's just not for me. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
And that worked. But I just noticed I was really coping really hard with a challenging work by coming home and doing like dumb, I don't know if this will resonate with anybody. I was doing like stupid stuff like opening 2 drinks at once, but trying to mask the sound of like opening 1, but I'm opening 2, trying to like time it. And I was so juvenile. Like, what am I 16? Sneaking my dad's beer in the garage? Like, what are we doing? And like
It's
all this
interesting.
stuff is so stupid. Anyways, but I was like, this is not who I want to be. You know?
No.
I stopped drinking about a year and a half ago now and just went cold turkey. I went 90 days, decided, you know what, I'm just going to stop forever. Here we are. It's funny. I was not an over drinker. Had a honestly fairly healthy relationship with alcohol. I just did it purely for physical health. That said, I remember in the first several months, the tendency I'd have after a really stressful day at work, which is just another day at work for me. Man, I would love to crack open a cold one or, old fashioned would be so nice. And I had to start asking myself, like, why is that where my mind is going right now? There are so many good outlets to de-stressing. I am a long distance runner. I have an incredible family, obviously playing with them and, going on walks, like all this good stuff that's not drinking. So I realized, like, even though in hindsight, it's like I had a healthy relationship with alcohol, like that was still an outlet. It's like long day at work or long week, Friday night comes around. It just felt good to numb a little bit, even with alcohol. And I'm like, I don't think there's anything innately wrong with that, but it was interesting to be removed from it that I could sober-mindedly say, oh, actually that's maybe questionable. You also mentioned faith. Where does faith come into all of this with you? Your family, work, life?
I think we moved around a lot growing up. I was never really like a part of a church or anything like that. And it reached a point, I don't know, maybe like early in our marriage, I was very lucky that my wife's parents were part of a church that just had a large influx of like newly married couples. There were probably like 30 different couples that had all just gotten married. And we had a very progressive pastor that understood the church cycle that happens, which is usually young people found a church. And when they get old, they age up through the church, but they refuse to change. And when they're old, they want it to be how they want an old person's church to be. And eventually that church withers and loses membership and all this stuff. And then new churches form, right? But most churches last, whatever it is, like 25 to 30 years or something at most. And there's this cycle of like churches dying. And he was like, we're just not going to do that here. Like, I'm a new pastor here. We're going to invest in the young couples and we're going to bridge this church. Like, it's going to continue to survive because we're going to keep investing in the young people. And so I was just thrust into this world of young couples, like doing life together. It was a really, really valuable time and experience. For a while, I did some like speaking at the church. I was like, am I supposed to be a pastor? Like, what is this? And I realized pretty quickly I'm a little rough for what my local area might have viewed as like somebody who was pastoral or in any sort of church leadership at the time, as you might be able to pick up on just from our conversation right now. But it was still like an important part of my life. And I wrestled with stuff for a very, very long time because I see my faith maybe a little bit differently than a lot of other people do. I see my faith, like I really look as a Christian. That means like very different people. So I live just outside Chicago. I live in Northwest Indiana. It's basically a Chicago suburb, right? It's like living
Chesterton
in Jersey,
area?
closer, like literally like first town over the border.
My brother lived in Chesterton. He became a professional poker player and then moved to Vegas. And so he's not there anymore, but I made my way to Chesterton quite a bit.
Like we go out to dinner in like Homewood and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. We lived in Homewood. Like,
Yep. Like awesome. As soon as you were talking about it, I'm like, this is home.
Yeah. Homewood Flossmoor is our second home. Cool. All right.
So the way that I look at my faith is looking at a lot of, at least my view of it, around like what Jesus teaches about love and taking care of people. I feel very strongly that, like, so I'll give you an example. Like when I train with my kids and I work out together a lot. We always talk about the goal of being strong is so that we can help other people. And it's a call and response thing. Like I ask them all the time in moments when they're doing something strong and helping somebody else, I'll remind them of this. I really believe in service, and that
cool.
at least, or I think collectively, our purpose is to reduce the suffering of other people. If you have the means and the capabilities, like your job is to use wealth, property, power, prestige, whatever you have available to you to reduce the suffering of everybody else around you as much as you possibly can. And in my area, faith has taken on a very political bend, which is a real bummer for me because I couldn't see it more differently. And I think we kind of take our eyes off the ball. So my job, and you'll probably see this more and more like woven into my content and the way I move and all these other things, is that of like, this is my job. And I remember I was following this guy, his name's Barrett Brooks. He's a leadership coach now. He was leading a community I was a part of for people starting small businesses years ago. And I remember I found out, just happenstance on a podcast, he was like, oh, every couple of years I kind of disappear for a month and I like read the whole Bible. And I was like, oh, I didn't know we shared the same faith. And then thinking about it, I'm like, oh, I can see it in how you move in the world. It all makes sense now that you would be that too. And I think that's a big thing for me. Like I don't talk about it a ton, which is weird because I have like a full sleeve of like Christian iconography tattoo. I have a giant Jesus on my arm for a while. He was only an outline because I got him outlined in March of 2020 and then the air could kill us and I couldn't get my tattoo finished. Jesus's outline looked a lot like James Vanderbeek, my brother-in-law pointed out, because he likes to make fun of me.
Do you just tell people it's James Vanderbeek now?
I just told him he looks like Jesus now, but the outline looked like James Vanderbeek. And I called him James Vander Jesus for a year or two. Like it's fun. Like, I don't know. I don't take some of this stuff that seriously. Like I'm okay joking about my faith and stuff. I don't begrudge anybody else that my silly thing that I believe to be true about the world is different than your silly thing you believe to be true about the world. It's okay. And I know I'm now the one on a tangent, but like I think that it is a very important part, but I remember there was a C.S. Lewis quote of like, we need less people writing books about Christianity and more people writing books about other things with their faith just latent in that writing. And that's kind of how I look at my expression of faith. It's just woven in. If you were to later find out what the influence for that was, you'd be like, makes sense, or it might be surprising depending on what your view of American Christianity is. But that's kind of how I think about it.
I think very similarly about it. Particularly, I think the three of us being content creators, I think it gives us a different view of how people can perceive us. I want people to see who I am as a person before they know what I believe as a person. And here on the podcast, I think Troy and I both do a fairly good job on TDIT, not expressing specifically like what we believe about the world and especially like politics. I think it's
you were talking about it in like the recap episode at the end of last year too. You were like,
we almost dove into it.
We almost did. I think it's I want people to know I am a person of faith, but I don't think I have to constantly talk about that on the platform that I have on LinkedIn, for example, for people to know that. I think the way I talk about my family and the way I talk about my wife and the way I talk about resolving conflict at work, and it comes out in the content, I would hope, I think is sort of what you're talking about here, Brendan. I like that. It's a really, really good way to put it.
Even now, like we're not very religious. We're not a very religious family. And I don't have anything against it. I just didn't grow up with that. Like my upbringing was not revolved around anything when it comes to religion. So I don't know it, right? So it's obviously, you can make stereotypes, you can make judgments, perceptions, things like that. But I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I just don't know it. You can't be really deep into something if you're not educated about it, in my opinion. So, which kind of like talking about upbringing, and I know we only have a few minutes left, but talking about upbringing, I haven't heard much of yours, but is there anything from your upbringing that you don't want to repeat as a father, as a husband, etc.?
Yeah,
you're like, how long do you have?
my marriage and my fatherhood is a rebellion against the way that I grew up. Like, I took my kids back to where I grew up in it's called the Southern Tier in upstate New York, like the Binghamton, like South, if you look at, I know Michigan always does the hand. I think New York is also the hand. It's like right in the middle, like right by Pennsylvania, right? Where I grew up, I took my kids back to see it. And I always lived in like attic apartments and stuff. And I know my mom was doing the best that she could, but my parents got divorced when I was 1. I didn't realize, the cool thing about kids is they're so dang resilient. Like, my wife was a social worker for a long time. She has her MSW
Yeah.
and like,
My wife is too.
she would always talk about like, who's this a problem for? Like she, her just being this white girl going into homes in Gary and being like, this is wrong
Yeah.
and that's wrong. And like, she had to come to terms with this like cultural relevancy around like, this is a problem for me because it's just different, but these kids aren't suffering. These kids aren't struggling. They're happy. This is a good bonded family. Like they're going through a hard time, but I don't need to come in asserting my cultural norms on anybody else.
Amen.
But going back and looking at the attic, when I was growing up, I remember my mom and I sat up we looked out, again, just like attic apartments that were really sketchy in retrospect. The one that I took my kids back to show them is now burned out and boarded up. Not a lot of people's childhood homes are burned out and boarded up. Like that's an indication of probably why I have this massive freaking chip on my shoulder. But I remember sitting in my mom's room watching the house across the street burn down. And like, that's also like not a normal experience. Like going to Toys R Us and doing looking trips where we didn't buy anything ever at Toys R Us. Like that's not a common experience. Or like all these things that I just thought, I had like a little the little cardboard box of baseball cards and one little basket of toys. Like we would move constantly. I could always pack all my belongings, my clothes, my everything up in one little box. I thought that was normal. Not like maybe I just have too much plastic in my house now with all these kids, but like we could not move like that.
Yeah.
And all of that sort of stuff, the relationship, like I don't have a fantastic relationship with my parents. And it is something I desperately wish that I had, but I don't because of their decisions. I have nothing but empathy and love for all of these struggles. And I do believe my parents, in a lot of ways, like did try hard, but I really struggle to use the phrase did the best they could.
Yeah.
Because I just don't see that.
Yeah. I relate to that completely. My mom tried her best, single mom, worked. I feel like that's why I'm a workaholic. When I think back on it, I don't want to like say, Mom, you're the reason why I want to work so much, but she had to work for us to eat and for us to go to school and for us to do this and that. And I mean, she was the only one that worked in the house. So yeah, I get that. Before we wrap up, I did want to ask, what is one piece of advice you have for dads, new dads, husbands, whatever, just one piece of advice to leave the audience, and then we can get to where they can find you.
Okay, so I think first, let's talk to new dads. Well, this is advice that a mentor gave to me and I've given to as many people as have ears to hear it, is don't let your joy be stolen by other people. My wife and I worked really, really hard to have kids. Like we tried for a long time to have kids and we couldn't. And we went through rounds of doctors and procedures and IVF and all this other stuff. And we're very blessed. But I think when you work really hard to have kids, there's a million mental checkpoints where you could back off that and be like, we don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. So we have made a million mental confirmations that we want these kids. And I was just bombarded with like, hope you don't like, and I'm not trying to be crass, but like all the tropes, right? Like, hope you don't like having sex anymore. Hope you don't like sleeping. Hope you don't like, you're not going to miss your freedom. Like say goodbye to hanging out with your friends. Like people sell these stuff and maybe they're trying to be funny. I don't really know. They're not being very thoughtful about their words and that you will have your joy stolen. And my experience has been such the opposite of just like every single minute that I can get with these kids. I've started doing, maybe we'll make this tip 2, but tip 1 is don't let people steal your joy. Even if they're well-meaning, you just say, hey, thanks for the advice. And just mentally put that in the bucket of, I can choose to like love this, right? Amor fati is a Latin phrase, means a love of fate. No matter how hard this is, the thing that can't be taken away from me is that I can choose to love what I'm enduring right now. The second thing, and this is so dumb, but I really want it to be practical, is I've started using my journal app on my phone. iPhone has a native journal app. And every single day, I try not to live my life through my phone. So I'm not experiencing my children or my family through the screen of like recording and taking a million photos. But I do try to snap a few photos because I realized I was so intent on living through my eyes that I had no photos of my children. And I'm like, whoa, like I do want to document some of this. It's going to go away. These memories are going to fade. So every single day, whenever we're doing something cool, I just pull the phone out, boop, quick photo, done, right? And I put it in the journal app and I just write this down. I think I heard Ryan Holiday talk about it. I think he has a lot of like really cool stuff for dads. It's been really impactful for me. And one of the things he talked about, I think it might even be another Seinfeld thing about like garbage time, like that in between time, that time in the car where you're just going somewhere. You're taking them to school, you're going to a soccer practice or something. And one of them says something like super funny. That goes in the journal app. Like a dumb little joke or one of my kids, they gave me, like I have all these little Legos all over my desk because one of my kids always, I'm not kidding you guys, like I have so many little like trinkets here. My 10-year-old just gives me random stuff. He's like, take this with you as I'm leaving the house.
Take
this
with
like
you.
all this little like garbage time stuff that you would just forget. And I was talking to my wife the other day. I now have like 2 years of daily journals and it's not deep. It's just like, Bears game didn't feel good, nachos, a joke that Finn made, one of my kids. But I can now go back through it and I get all of the garbage time back.
That's so
Come on, man. Like, what's that worth? Like on my deathbed, I would give back all the money, all the success, all the, external validation that people see on LinkedIn. I'd give it all back just to put my kids to bed one more time. Like, come on.
Yeah. Do you do that daily or do you do it in the moment when something happens?
It pops up every single day at 8:00, but like literally, I don't know if we'll get this in here, but like
I got some trinkets of my own.
Dude, I love like look at all these days. It's just days and days.
Yeah, that's sick.
So cool.
Well,
that's okay. That's awesome.
It's
I love
so many,
that.
but like you know what I remembered that on Monday, June 23rd, that my boys were camping with my in-laws and my wife, and I worked all day and went up to see them. And my kids, like, they're just like silly pictures of them around. Like, I would never remember this in a million years.
Yeah.
But now I do.
That's awesome.
So I just think like
that.
documenting it. We all do that, people that work in tech or post on LinkedIn or whatever, content creators, make content for yourself. Like make content about your kids for yourself. Even if you don't do a journal every single day, just take those photos, man. Just pop, and then you can scroll back through.
I love that. Scott Barker made a post yesterday. I know we're jumping off, but Scott Barker made a post yesterday that said, I used to write for people, now I write for myself, and my creative juices have just expanded so much. But anyways, we only have a minute left. Brendan, thank you so much. I love chatting with you. I'm sure Daniel did as well. Yes. Where can they find you?
They can find my new newsletter on Beehive.
Hey, let's go. I didn't even know that. How did I not know that? Anyways,
I don't know. We can talk about it.
I would love to talk more about that.
You're good. You're good. You weren't my sales guy. I'm too small. Anyways, you could honestly, if you Google like growth sprints, it's exactly how it sounds. Or you Google Brendan Hufford. It's not because I'm good at SEO. I am, but Brendan Hufford's a pretty unique. My name's not like Matt Johnson. Something where it's just you're no chance of ranking. Brendan Hufford, spell it wrong. Google will still get it right. Find me on LinkedIn. I try to share something cool and thoughtful every single day. I also share a lot of dad stuff on there because there's a lot of time I'm writing to get clients. I'm trying to drive business. I'm trying to help move my industry forward, but I'm also writing for other guys like us. So
I love that.
Brendan, this has been huge. I mean, so many thoughtful nuggets. Can't wait to listen back to this episode. If you are listening, find us Two Dads in Tech, Spotify, YouTube, podcasts. You can find us at twodadsinTech.com. This is TDIT, weekly podcast every Wednesday morning. We are going to kill it this year with guests like Brendan. Thanks again, Brendan. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thanks, guys.